For more than 40 years, the families of Coronation Street have slugged it out. Whether it's a teenage tearaway or a granny from hell, you wouldn't want rallies like this lot. They say that blood is thicker than water, but it's not stopped plenty being spilt on the famous Weatherfield cobbles. Whether it's the battling Battersbys...
You and your family ought to be in a lunatic asylum where you all belong. Oh, you think so? Yeah! Ugh.
I hated the Battersbys because we were so horrible.
Or the balmy Barlows.
I'm the product of you two and your musical chairs love life.
The sort of modern Northwest Addams family.
The Mad MacDonalds.
I'm pregnant.
Liz went from one trauma to another.
Or the Dotty Duckworths.
I only had to touch him and he went all trembling.
Trembling? She stood on me blue suede shoes, so I thumped her.
Oh, I think the Duckworths have got class. Oh, yeah.
If I can sum up in one sentence what being part of a family on Coronation Street is like, it's probably completely mad.
There's always an excitement there, and you never quite know what's going to happen next.
Someone can be killed, you know, a week before, and then a week later, you know, they're standing at the bar having a drink as if nothing's happened.
If life in real life threw everything it's thrown at me, at Audrey on the street, I don't think I'd be here talking to you.
Thank you. It's so glamorous.
Families are enormously important to Coronation Street. I think the essence of so much of what we do revolves around the family.
There are fallouts, there are affairs, there are money problems, and that's really what makes a soap work.
You get so much rich material from the different generations, from the relationships, from the conflicts. So I can't imagine Coronation Street without at least a few kind of big and interesting and complex families.
And Coronation Street is home to the biggest families of them all. At number 1, you've got the Barlows. 2 doors down, you've got the infamous Battersbys. Then at number 9, the Duckies. McDonald's, they're at number 11. And just across the road at number 8, the Platts. And everybody's got their favourites.
My all-time favourite family would have to be the Barlows.
Would have to be the Ogdens.
Ashley and Fred.
The McDonald's.
Barlows, definitely.
Well, it's got to be the Duckworths, hasn't it?
I think Jack and Vera's best.
I couldn't do without the Barlows.
They're kind of like a bit like the Osbornes. They're very dysfunctional, but they really love each other.
Yes, all right, I'm pregnant because of a bet. A bet that I won, thank you very much. And yes, it's mad. But I've had no stability, remember?
Just mad collection of people. And who fathered who, I have no idea.
I'm the product of you two and your musical chairs love life.
The Barlows have been the centre of some of the biggest and best stories we've told.
But there's just kind of, what a collection. Where did they get it from and how did it all happen? There's death, there's, oh, God knows what's in that family.
So if it's a time for self-reflection for all of us, bring it on.
The Barlows are the street's longest-serving family, and 43 years on, they're still at each other's throats.
You sold your own baby.
The success of the Barlow family, I think, is in its total hopelessness in staying together or producing good offspring.
Where are you going?
I need some fresh air.
They're such a wonderfully dysfunctional family. You know, they've had so many brilliant stories, so many incredible strains and tensions, so many crises.
Ken has always tried to be a good family man, and he just always wanted, really, is a happy Christmas, which I don't think we've ever had.
All I asked was, what are we doing tonight?
Oh, whatever it is, we won't be doing it together.
Oh, well, now we know.
Look, do you think that you could all just stop moaning?
That would be nice, yeah.
Oh, I'm going out.
And I think the fact that he can't get it is the ongoing story.
Yes, after 23 girlfriends, 3 wives, 3 divorces and numerous affairs, it's fair to say Teacher Ken has taught us all we need to know about dysfunctional families.
This is a man who's lost 2 wives by death, and then you know, you say to an actress, "You're going to marry Ken Barlow." They go, "Oh no, I'm not, am I? I need this job."
When Ken and Deirdre tied the knot in 1981, it guaranteed that there'd be more troubles than Betty's served up hot pots in the Rovers.
I remember when Ken and Deirdre first got together, and we said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a really good happy marriage, and we were like the ones that it didn't go wrong for, and everything was lovely.
If we had had a perfectly happy family, I don't think we'd be here now. Wouldn't be any stories.
But if Ken was bad, Deirdre was more than his match. She'd go on to have 7 affairs, marry a Moroccan, and serve a prison sentence before ending up back with good old Ken.
I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
Marriages always go wrong in soapland because they have to, really.
You know, if you sat there night after night in every episode watching, you know, a black and white weepy snogging eating chocolates with your husband, it's boring, isn't it?
Sorry.
You're always sorry! I think one of the things that as regards the relationship between Ken and Deirdre that keeps people interested is the fact that it's been on and off for years.
You have affairs, you go behind my back, you criticise me, you mock me, you draw back from me, and all the time you're sorry!
There's a lot of very good conflicts, on-off, rowing, fighting, but there wouldn't have been the fights and there wouldn't have been all the problems if he hadn't desperately wanted and cared and wanted a good wife and wanted a good family.
Well, I'm sorry, Deirdre, but this time that's not enough!
I think it's one of the interesting tensions that you see in Coronation Street is these people doing all these things that kind of cause strain and stress and put their family relationships under enormous pressure, and yet somehow the family survives.
But the Barlows were never more tested than when Deirdre met Mike.
Ken and Deirdre in the 80s, their relationship was going through a rocky patch, I think, because she was at it again.
My favourite storyline for the Barlows were when Deirdre had an affair with Mike Baldwin.
I see. It's easier to start sleeping with Mike Baldwin.
Oh, the nation! Oh, everybody were talking about it.
Ken was out of work and was very unmotivated. And I think Deirdre turned to Mike because he was so motivated.
Baldwin of all people!
Ken disliked everything that Mike Baldwin represented, the opportunist businessman, cynical, and Ken was the idealist, wanting to be the voice of Weatherfield and all the good things. And then to find that his wife had gone off and had an affair with this man was too much. That's when the great explosions happened.
Why did you put the phone down on me?
It's Ken. He knows. I've told him everything.
Get out of this house! Shut up! I'm warning you! Get out of this house before me!
What Bill obviously felt like doing was grabbing me by the throat and pushing me against the wall, which I wasn't expecting because we hadn't rehearsed that. And I thought he'd gone completely bonkers.
Go.
And I was sort of fighting to get away and was really upset.
I don't think half of them wanted her to go back to him. I think they wanted her to go live with Baldwin. But she stayed, didn't she?
You felt rather sad for him that had happened. Mind you, why am I singing up for him? He's put it about a bit as well. So what am I saying? Forget that.
Of course, Ken isn't the only one who likes to put it about. Coming up, the residents of number 9, the original troublemakers of the street.
It's ironic that they've been together longer than any other couple in Coronation Street, and they probably had the most affairs.
I think the Duckworths are a nice family. They just give that street a bit of class, really.
Behind the blue and white cladding of number 9, sparks often flew when Jack and his little swamp duck Vera were together.
Have you done?
Do you think you're cunning? Do you know you're about as cunning as a woodlouse in a firewood factory?
Everybody knows someone like the Duckworths who, you know, call each other, shout at each other, have great rows.
You'd have not told me about that cheque that come, would you? No, I thought I wouldn't find out. Do you know, if it's the same if you won the pool, you'd sit there and say notes.
If I won the pools, I wouldn't be sat here, but sat somewhere where you couldn't find me.
Everybody says, oh, I've got my auntie and uncle are just like Jack and Vera. There's lots of Jack and Veras, you know, walking around.
As a partnership and a married couple, they've just been fantastic and hysterically funny and, you know, tragic and but always immensely entertaining.
Well, look, I'm telling you, I want half that money, so come on, where have you put the cheque?
Somewhere safe. Somewhere you won't think of looking, not in a million years.
Down your trousers, is it?
Because you just know that they absolutely love each other to death.
Jack loves Vera. He just doesn't like the woman. Because every time he tries to do something a little bit on the naughty side, she thwarts him. It were my pain and suffering. Where were your pain and suffering?
Pain and suffering! I've had that ever since I married you!
He's a bit of an idiot, Jack. I mean, he tries to get one over on Vera, but she knows exactly what he's doing. Every move.
She's 3 moves ahead of him. And he ain't happy about that.
Hey, I was having a nice lay until you started with that fog on.
Terence, don't be rude to your mother. That's my job.
If Jack and Vera's rowing wasn't enough, chuck badass son Terry in the mix and you've got an unforgettable family.
Jack and Vera are also in that great Coronation Street tradition of long-suffering parents. I mean, Terry has been an awful son. He's done some terrible things to his mum and dad.
Yes, Terry's a big disappointment.
He is the black sheep of the family.
Terry is lecherous, conceited, deceitful, dishonest.
I think he should have been drowned at birth, Terry.
But being a mother, Vera loves him.
You know, they've had enough reasons to kind of suspect that Terry is absolutely a good-for-nothing.
But no matter how many times bad boy Terry left, he'd always return with some heartache for his dear old man.
Mum, listen to me.
He's such a bad boy. He's such a bad boy, but he still can come back. And there are people like that. They'll disappear for years, be it prison or anywhere else, and then they'll suddenly come back. And he always comes back and does something dastardly.
Like selling his own son.
What have you done with him?
Mum, can we talk about this inside?
What the hell's going on here?
You're safe.
Selling Tommy to the Ortons, that really gutted Vera, because she loved that child.
That hurt me, that hurt me. I didn't think a lad of mine would do anything like that. How much is he giving you, Terry? How much money is this joker giving you for all this?
It's not about money!
Who do you think you're talking to?
I have watched you rob your neighbours. I've seen you take what you want. I've watched you damage folk and never give a damn.
I think the worst thing that Vera ever experienced was when Jack hit Terry.
When he finally had enough of everything that he'd done and the fact that he'd tried to sell the baby, and he probably did what the whole nation had wanted to do for many years.
And you're trying to tell me that you were doing all this for somebody else's benefit? Well, I hope the lie chokes you. He's a bad lad.
Oh, Jack!
Hey, this is getting out of hand. You'll only do that in one stat. I don't want you calling me that no more, you.
It's so tragic. She stands in the street and the car drives off with her little grandson in the back of the car, and she's like in the street bawling her eyes out, and how anyone could do that to remember their family.
All in a day's work for Terry.
The headaches that kids give their parents is a very important part of Coronation Street. It's an important part of life. Anyone with children will know that one way or another they're going to give you headaches.
It's a marvellous contraceptive. Nobody would ever have children if they just watched Coronation Street.
Another street family who know all about parental heartaches. Yes, it's back to the Barlows and their very own Corrie kid from hell, Tracy.
You sold your own baby.
Oh, she's evil. That Tracy. Oh.
Recently, she's been so despicable, hasn't she? She's been, like, really horrible.
Your loving husband couldn't wait to get his hands on a real woman.
You are evil.
She's scheming, manipulative.
Psychotic.
Nasty. A nasty vixen.
You've nothing that I want. Haley's right, you're a monster.
Completely unprincipled.
An absolute bitch.
And my daughter.
What's up? Because this is who the baby's father is! Bridegroom, Steve!
God, isn't she damaged? Damaged, that girl.
She doesn't care who she tramples on, she doesn't care whose life she ruins. As long as she's all right, that's all that matters. And she's just incredible. There's been no one as bad as this girl, ever.
Toxic Tracy began her career as the all-time soap bitch early on.
I loved the character of Tracy when she was a teenager, because that's when you first got a taste of who she might be later. I mean, I didn't think we really saw a completely wicked streak then, but she was a very, very stroppy teenager.
Where have you been till this time?
Ow.
Where?
I told you, ow. I'm going to bed.
No, you are not. You're going to sit down and tell me what you've been up to.
No, I'm not. It's none of your business.
Don't you dare talk to me like that.
Tracy, growing up, I think she was just very, very strong-minded and strong-willed.
Look, I'm not a child, so don't treat me like
Well, start
one.
behaving like an adult then.
There have been a lot of moments with Tracy where she's caused Deirdre a lot of grief.
I suppose you said you were at a Tupperware party. Or did you tell him that you were in bed with Mike Baldwin?
That is enough.
It was Ken Deirdre, Mike Baldwin thing coming back again.
Did my dad wait up for you?
Be quiet.
I bet he did.
Go to bed now.
And I bet you told him a pack of bloody
You
lies.
heard me.
I hate you rotten cowie tart.
Sins of the father and the mother, I think, at #1 Coronation Street. Some of the blame has to fall at Deirdre and Ken's door.
I mean, I blame the parents. I always blame the parents.
We are pretty horrendous, really. I don't think we can sit back and criticise the behaviour of Tracy very much because of the example that we've set.
I don't think that girl ever had a proper upbringing.
So, are the parents to blame, or could it be someone else?
Blanche is hydrogen bomb on legs, and she could cause trouble in heaven.
That's right, Granny Barlow. Is Tracy just a chip off the old block?
You wanted me to die so that you could get your hands on my savings. And what were you planning to do? Dump Ken and set off on a world cruise?
Blanche speaks her mind completely, and Tracy speaks her mind. And Blanche has got a wicked song as well. And, you know, and I think, yeah, the peas out of the same pod.
Maybe catch yourself a rich man, though you'd probably end up with a salesman passing himself off as the ship's captain.
Yes, it makes for some interesting stuff, having the 3 female members of the family around, yeah. It's, yeah, certainly puts the cat among the pigeons a bit.
I might have made mistakes in my life, Deirdre, but at least I've never been in prison.
There's nobody more difficult than Blanche, who's always there and ready to mix it at any given moment.
She never puts a brain in gear, does she, before she speaks? She just says what she thinks, which I think is quite funny.
It suited you to have me here so that you didn't have to be left alone with Ken.
You're mad!
All her life, she has criticised Deirdre. And Deirdre really resents this.
Not much excitement, is there? Watching documentaries on global warming?
You're wrong.
Blanche is quite possibly the most poisonous woman we have ever seen on the street. She might hide it under a blue rinse, but I guarantee you that in that handbag of hers, rather than a bingo blotter, she wields something a little bit more sinister.
I might be your mother, Deirdre, but my life's a lot more exciting than yours.
But if you think Ken and Deirdre have had it rough with Blanche, what about Gail Tilsley having to put up with poison ivy?
Don't you think that you're doing your best for Nicky? Because with you as a mother, it'll be a wonder if you don't turn up disturbed.
Gail has lived a dog's life.
Gail has been through the most extraordinary dramas and crises. She's a fantastic survivor.
How much could one family go through and still stay sane?
The Platt family have probably been through the most aggro.
Who wants happy families? There's no good storylines in happy families. I'm more than happy with my family.
She is one of the grand tragic heroines. I mean, forget about Ophelia and all the Shakespeare lot. Gail, Platt, Tilsley, Hillman, whatever she's going under nowadays, you know, the men in her life for a start.
Gail's been married 4 times. That's the most married... I'm the most married woman in the street.
Husband number 1 was hunky garage mechanic Brian Tilsley.
Gail and Brian, a couple, were wonderful.
Well, he loved Gail Brian. He really did love Gail.
Gail and Brian were happy for a time.
But along with Brian, she got the street's all-time worst mother-in-law.
One of my favourite characters was Poison Ivy, Ivy Tilsley.
Ivy was a nightmare. You know, she was a nightmare. She used to drive Gail absolutely bonkers.
I'm only trying to do what's best for Nicky.
Oh, yes. Is that why you made a fool of his father, is it? Is that why you jumped into bed with Ian? Is it just doing your best for Nicky? Is that why your dad left home? Well, by the heck, all I can say is I don't blame him after all this. Because if this is you doing your best for Nicky, I don't think much of it.
For years, we had the ultimate mother-in-law from hell in the shape of Ivy Tilsley Brennan.
Making Gail's life an utter misery, interfering, control freak. My Brian, you know, she could do nothing right.
Don't you think that you're doing your best for Nicky? Because with you as a mother, it'll be a wonder if he don't turn up disturbed. You just think on. This is all you're doing, lady.
Ivy was essentially selfish. She wanted things her way. She didn't want people to come into her children's lives unless she could control them.
But now Gail's giving her own kids earache. Could she be the all-new Poison Ivy?
I think Gail's turning into Ivy, so I think very easily she could be the mother-in-law from hell.
It's the big wheel. It's the big wheel turning. I told you, I'm Ivy Tilsley.
Gail as a mum is... There's two sides of it. One side of it, she is a brilliant mum. She loves her kids. She dotes on them. She would do anything for them. And, you know, she's shown that in the past. The bad side of that is that she can be an interfering cow.
Strong words from her nearest and dearest, but you can't really blame her when she gets news like this.
Pregnant? No.
Oh, yes.
One of the best moments was when we found out that Sarah Lou was pregnant at 13, and just the reaction of Gail when she went in with her to the doctors.
Tell the doctor, you can't be pregnant if you've never had sex.
When a teenage girl gets pregnant, like Sarah Lou did a few years ago, great story. It's very real, it happens, it's a huge headache for the mother, but, you know, it gives us great material.
Oh, Sarah Lou. What have you done? Actually, she does try. I mean, she loves her family, doesn't she? But she just always gets it wrong. You see, I actually think that Gail exists to, help parents believe that they're doing a better job than she is. Oh, God, at least I can do better than Gail, they say. I think that's very important. And also, I think she's in there to, so that parents know how not to behave.
Oh, but didn't you notice?
I took her to the doctors.
Gail, you're her mother. Didn't you know what you were doing?
We knew nothing till it was too late.
Shut up, will you? I don't want to talk to you.
And the way that the whole family sort of was torn apart but then tried to pull together, and, you know, Martin's called in and she's going, oh, my God, my daughter's 13 and she's pregnant. And it's just the whole generations of Platts, they've had nothing but misery, and here it is again.
You silly girl!
Oh, God, please! Silly little, leave her alone!
I could slap her! It used to be a very sweet little family with mum, dad and kids. Now, over the years, it's kind of gone, every which way, and a little bit strange.
And then she ended up with Richard Hillman, a killer.
She wasn't to know he was a psychopath, was she?
Gail's family's very existence was threatened by her ill-fated marriage to Tricky Dicky Hillman. He had a rather unconventional solution to the mother-in-law problem: bump her off.
No, get away from him, he's a killer!
Calm
Archie,
down.
come on, tell her before we found out Gail. He killed his ex-wife, he's tried to kill me, he's gonna kill you next.
We thought, what could be more interesting than Audrey realising what was up, trying to warn Gail that she's married to a serial killer, and Gail not believing her.
Ma'am, don't be ridiculous,
Run away from
please.
him, Gail, please. Run away from him. Get the kids and run away, please.
You know that Richard's evil, Audrey knows it, but Gail won't listen.
She went through a terrible time because of that man.
Poor old Gail, she can't help it. She just loves him so much.
Oh, Gail, please, before he kills someone else.
Audrey, you're not well. You need to be with your family. Come with us. You'll be quite safe.
Get off me!
Not today, thank you.
It also gave you a lovely emotional drama between mother and daughter where they'd fallen out to such an awful extent.
Audrey is this proud, vicious, protective lioness. If you harm her family, she's there, she's standing at the door, she's tall, she's proud, she's snarly.
Oh, for pity's sake, girl, I am not ill.
You are, ma'am. You are, or else you wouldn't say things like this.
Gail, I can prove it to you.
I love Audrey. I think she's, like Ken, one of those people that you pull them out and the wall falls down.
I promise you, I am going to protect you and your children to the best of my ability, if you will just let me. She is kind to the head of the family, and she will fight like anything to keep the family as such, you know.
No matter how hard Audrey tried, it looked like Gail and her family were doomed to sleep with the fishes. But the family's day was saved when ex-hubby Martin Platt came to the rescue.
The sight of that family having been rescued from the canal, they'd just escaped from that terrible fate, from that life with that serial killer. It was just an image, really, of a family that had survived the most terrifying of experiences, and there they were, wet, cold, but still alive.
Oh, revenge!
What happened was that the bond between mother and daughter was far too strong, and Audrey forgave Gail almost instantly when Gail realised the truth.
Audrey was a wonderful mum, wasn't she? She stood by her.
She fought the corner for her family, and thankfully won.
You were there for me and the kids. No questions.
They can tear one another to shreds, and then somebody attacks them, and boy, you've got a united front.
Whatever happens, there's always family. Blood is thicker than water.
I'll never be able to make it up to you.
My darling, that is the whole point. You don't have to. Come.
Coming up, the ultimate neighbours from hell are unleashed on Weatherfield.
Mad, loud, stupid, crazy.
Your biggest fear of all time is living next door to them.
And you just thought, how on earth can these people exist?
When a new family arrives on Coronation Street, it's a surefire guarantee that they'll ruffle quite a few feathers.
I know. You're going down, brother.
Don't film these two because they're naughty. We're the bad family.
It's always good when new life comes into the street, when a new family arrives. It sort of injects a breath of fresh air.
It's a very difficult job bringing in a new family to the programme. You have to think very carefully before doing it at all. And a lot of families, you know, don't stick, they don't settle, and most new families take a year or two before anyone starts to care about them.
But what makes a great Corrie family? When the McDonalds arrived with twins Andy and Steve, they had all the right ingredients to spice up the street.
What are you playing at? You'll see. You gotta have the emotion. You got to have the humour.
If you can make somebody laugh, you can make somebody cry, you can make it believable one way or another, then that has got to be the main ingredient, and I think that's where the street really gets it right.
They have to be fun, humorous. The public have to care about them.
Hey, what's that noise?
Well, it can't be the builders, not on a bank holiday.
You need some interesting history if they arrive. You know, you need to feel that they're bringing some really interesting baggage to the street.
Go. Where are you going?
And there was nobody with more baggage than the McDonalds. In 1989, they smashed onto the street in fine style.
Get yourself out of here! Get yourself home now!
They were a totally new family that came lock, stock and barrel from a different area.
It was like a real realism injection.
Gosh, the McDonald's have brought all sorts of stories in, haven't they? Alcoholism, domestic violence, prison.
The McDonalds were a very modern family with very modern problems.
I've had to fight with Rottweilers, drive JCBs, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. I've practically done a very, very low-budget Hollywood movie.
I remember way back when they came on screen, you know, Jim, this kind of very angry man on the edge of violence all the time.
Big fiery Jim, the complete lunatic.
Liz, who was kind of really the classic tart with a heart, skirts always an inch or two too short, you know, teetering around on her heels.
Andy, you know, the very intelligent but also wicked sense of humour brother. And Steve, the kind of lovable rogue, really. It was like a perfect combination, you know, for a good telly family.
Jim was the noisy one and he was the soldier, so he shouted all the time. Liz was the strength. And so she always got her own way, and she was the boss. And the boys would always do as she said rather than him.
We had 2 young teenagers come into the street and cause absolute chaos.
One who was kind of destined to be the good lad, who went to university and all of that stuff, and the other who was destined to be the bad lad. A great contrast between the twins.
Family life never ran smoothly for the McDonalds, and young Steve often had a hand in it.
Hiding behind a woman again, are you?
The classic moment, the defining moment of the McDonald family was when Steve had run away with a girl down the street and he'd taken Jim's motorbike.
No need to hide behind anybody.
Oh, don't you?
And Liz went to the lakes and brought him back.
Right, that's enough. You upstairs and in that bath.
Wait a minute, he's not going anywhere. I've got something to settle with this young man.
Jim just goes for Steve.
Upstairs and in the bath.
I'll give him bath.
You're not giving anybody anything.
And Liz says, you stay away, you don't touch him.
Oh, am I not?
Oh, leave her alone.
Oh, aye. You fancy your chances? I know you've taken a few steps in the big wide world. Well, come on!
You lay one finger on him, and I'll take these 2 and I'll go and you'll never see any of us ever again.
You touch one hair of his head and I go. I mean it. You start laying into him like he's some new recruit and I pack up and you don't see any of us again. Ever! And we did literally go from one trauma to another.
I think Liz and Jim, well, you could imagine them on Trisha, really, couldn't you? Fighting.
All right!
It could have disintegrated at any point because she looked the type to go off and have an affair, and Jim was terribly jealous of her.
We did have a brief fling. It didn't mean anything.
That was a very grim scenario being played out.
The barracks!
No!
Get out of that car!
There was brutality, there was drunkenness, there were a lot of bad things.
Get out of that car, you hear? Get out of that car! Get out!
You have to make the character you are playing as real as is possible, and you have to make them as believable as possible.
You know what I think, Elizabeth? You know what I think? I think I'm just a long string of men.
No!
And I'm looking like a bloody fool, you dirty, stinking whore!
It was a very riveting storyline, but it was very, very dark and almost a relief when it was over.
One of Liz's famous lines, she always used to end, if she had end of episode, it would always be something along the lines of, why is life so flaming complicated? It used to go da-da-da-da-da-da.
And street life was going to get really complicated when a family of ex-cons moved into number 5.
We got this breakdown of what kind of characters, you know, they were, what they were about. Les had been in prison and I'd been in prison, and the girls had, you know, been cautioned by the police, shoplifting, and all sorts had gone on, you know.
The arrival of the Battersbys wielding their own brand of trouble rocked the Corrie cobbles.
Janice and Les arrive in this battered old, I think it was a Volvo estate or something like that, with all the belongings in the back, with a big trailer on the back, you know, and they just arrived like this real gypsy family.
As the car comes round the corner, Leanne's smoking a cigarette. I don't smoke, and I was like... and I have to pass the cigarette to Georgia, who played Toya, and I kind of pass it to her in this really strange way. We then see the car coming round the corner. She drops the cigarette, and as she stamps on it, the car kind of backfires, and it just looks like a comedy entrance.
The Battersbys have been one of the great families of recent years, and I do remember, you know, the kind of furore that accompanied their arrival. This kind of horrible family, you know, the family from hell, the neighbours from hell. You really would not want the Battersbys moving in next door.
These are for you, Mum.
Oh, lovely.
Oh, very nice. But she hasn't got me out.
Dad.
What?
Happy birthday.
Oh, sir. Well, if it were going begging.
You're thieving, Gits.
when the Battersbys arrived, of course, it was chaos. And they were very down and out awful.
I think a lot of people saw them as, you know, the family from hell.
Well, the Battersbys, I mean, your biggest fear of all time is living next door to them. You know, and you think, oh, no, no.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. And it wasn't long before the Battersbys were rubbing their neighbours up the wrong way.
I don't think anybody liked the Battersbys at first. It was like there was this snobby element, you know, that we weren't good enough to be in this street.
That is it!
What's going on?
You said she would turn it off!
She did. We've had it off for over an hour. You don't expect us to have it off all night, do you? We've a right to listen to music.
And I've got a right to go to sleep!
Well, we're not stopping you.
You know, you've got two teenage girls and they like to play loud music. I mean, that's not my fault, is it?
And Curly had just had enough, so he banged on the door, he marched in, and he threw the ghetto blaster out the window.
Les headbutted him.
You and your whole family ought to be locked up, caring the community. It's a joke. You and your family ought to be in a lunatic asylum where you all belong. Oh, you think so? Yeah.
Hey, nice one, Dad.
That was, you know, in about the first couple of days that we lived there.
And it wasn't only Curly's nose that was put out of joint.
I think the reaction of the neighbours was very much my reaction. These are not our kind of people. We do not want them here.
There'd just be this family that's shouting and screaming continually at each other, and you just thought, how on earth can these people exist?
They were described as the family from hell, and it really was great because there was such a backlash.
And I remember we'd been in the show about 2 episodes, and Teletext held a poll, should the Battersbys be booted out? And I think 97% said yeah.
At first, we were like, oh, you know, is that wrong? And then we found it hysterical because that's what we had been brought in to do, so it obviously worked.
And it wasn't long before people began to get attached to them and become fond of them.
The family we all loved to hate made sure that some real Christmas crackers were served up.
What in God's name is that?
Duh, I think it's a turkey. Yeah, there was a scene where it was Christmas, it was one of the Christmas episodes, and Les organises for a turkey to be delivered. And it arrives and it's alive, and I think it was called Teresa, the turkey. And at that time, it was when Toya was going through a vegetarian stage with Spider.
No, I remember Bruce standing there with his turkey that was alive. You know, I expected him to come in with it like it, I don't know, a bit doped up or something, and it just kept like trying to peck us. And it was massive, you know, and oh, thank God I didn't have to hold it.
It's flaming gone. It's disappeared. It'll be him next door. He'll have nicked it.
Spider?
Spider? I'll give him Spider when I get my hands on him. I'll strangle him with his own web.
One thing and another happens. The turkey ends up getting run over by Les, I think.
Well, if we find this thing, you leave it to me. Do you understand?
And then they eat it for Christmas dinner with tyre marks still there.
The Battersbys were on course for another collision when Leanne got her claws into the street's golden boy, Nick Tilsley.
Stories are great when they involve families. Stories are even better when they involve families feuding with other families. When Nick got together with Leanne and ran off and got married, suddenly the Battersbys and the Tilsleys were together. And that was great because Gail being related to Les Battersby is fantastic.
Leanne spotted Nick across the road as he was arriving or going somewhere, and she's like, oh, aye, I've got my eye on you. And as soon as she clapped eyes on him, he was her mission.
She was an incredibly feisty woman, or girl, you know, very pretty and sexy.
I think Janice was absolutely thrilled to bits when Leanne got with Nick.
Janice might have been pleased, but Gail was less than happy.
We're not doing anything wrong.
Oh, not by your standards, and certainly not by hers. And of course, nobody is ever good enough.
She felt her son especially was a bit better than the Battersbys.
You, get up them stairs and make yourself decent, if that's not a contradiction in terms.
Gail lives on the posh side of the street with a garden, and Janice lives on the rough side of the street with a yard. So automatically you've got one saying, she's looking down her nose at me, and the other one saying, oh my God, what's he doing with her, sort of thing.
Well, Gail thought she was like, you know, the bee's knees. I mean, at the end of the day, what's she got?
Well, they're loud. You'd hate the Battersbys living next door to you.
Who does she think she is? I mean, she's not, you know, she's not J-Lo, is she? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, why does she look down her nose at me? She's only a working mum, the same as me. And I think Janice was a bit miffed by her, you know, and like coming round the house and, you know, shouting the odds. And she thought, get out.
You what?
We're married.
Well, aren't you going to congratulate us?
Coming up, when families go their separate ways and new additions move in.
It is just like battery hen, so you've got to keep... People are falling off the perch at one end. You've got to keep bringing the new ones in.
Come here, give us a hug.
Whether it's marriage, divorce, kidnap or even murder, it's no wonder that people are always coming and going on Coronation Street.
You're always looking for ways to keep a family together, but sometimes you get to the point when you realise that the only way forward is for a family to fall apart.
You have to change. You have to evolve over the years. The street has evolved over the years. The street hasn't stayed the same. It couldn't possibly.
Families have the same issues. There are problems, there are relationship problems, there's affairs, there's money worries, there's death, there's birth, there's marriages. And at the end of the day, at the heart of it are the same principles.
It is just like battery hen, so you've got to keep... People are falling off the perch at one end. You've got to keep bringing the new ones in.
But when someone does fall off their perch, what happens next?
The more people that you can cram into a home, the better, because the more people that's in a house, the more opportunity you've got to play stories. 2 people in a house is very, very limiting story-wise. So that's why we sort of bolt on new partners for people.
And since Janice left him, that meant the arrival of a new love interest for Layabout Les.
Coronation Street is at its best when it's got a fishwife, when it's got someone who just opens her mouth and absolute filth comes out.
And that window will have to be paid for.
Well, you can go and shout at someone else for it, because you'll get no money out of us.
Evil Hobbit Scylla Brown, who's like become like the second version of the Battersbys with Les. It's like, nobody can be worse than evil Scylla.
Well, let's face it, you know, she's not a great catch. I mean, even... I'm not saying Janice is beautiful or anything like that, but, you know, she's kind of worse.
Oh, I'd punch her. Oh.
Go back to your own side at street, because I'm warning you, if I have to come downstairs to you, it won't just be a window that's broken, it'll be your teeth and all.
She's terrible, isn't she?
So evil. She is wicked beyond belief. And Chesney, I think he's the child of the devil.
I can't see that she has any redeeming qualities.
So, is lovely Scylla a permanent fixture, or will Janice and Les get it back on?
What? I am just trying to look nice.
Or get a facelift.
In some ways, it'd be nice to see them get back together, but after all they've been through, I don't know if that would happen or not.
He would have to radically change. You know, I think he'd have to, well, obviously stop dipping in a purse for the odd fiver. Treat her more, I'm not saying like a lady, because that would completely freak her out.
Maybe they'll eventually get back together, who knows?
Meanwhile, now that Prince of Darkness Terry has exited stage left, Jack and Vera have found happiness in the shape of trusty Tyrone.
£1,000.
£1,000?
You see, a family doesn't have to be blood. It's who you put into the family home. And yeah, blood is thicker than water, but sometimes you can adopt somebody and make them blood.
Tyrone is everything that they had wished Terry would have been in his younger day.
You know, you're like a son to us. Give over. No, you are, Tyrone. You've given us back something that we thought we'd lost. I think he's the son that Vera wishes she'd have had. You know, because he's so soft. He's lovely.
Some happiness then for the Duckworths, but for the Barlows and the MacDonalds, their happiness is less than certain.
You can't do this! Get out! I just want my baby!
And then to discover that Steve MacDonald's a father, it just beggars belief. I mean,
You don't know where to go from there. It's just too much.
The fact that the mother of the baby is a Barlow and the father is a MacDonald has to be good for the future of the programme. We don't know exactly where this is going to take us, but we do know it'll take us to some very interesting places.
The joining of the MacDonald clan and the Barlow clan with Tracy's baby, Tracy and Steve's baby, is just mighty.
I know she's no angel.
Oh, you can say that again.
The fact that this baby has got these two wonderful grandmothers who, for years, Deirdre and Liz were best mates.
She's just ruined my son's wedding!
Well, by all accounts, you were against it anyway.
Now, with their children at war and a shared grandchild, I think the fur will fly.
She handed her baby to somebody else.
Well, if your Steve had stood by her like he should have done...
Deirdre, there's been enough
like
of this.
any decent man would have.
This granddaughter is everything to her, absolutely everything. And she wants Steve to be a part of his daughter's life. And she wants to be a part of her granddaughter's life, and will be.
The baby's got nothing to do with the Croppers or Steve MacDonald, come to that.
I cannot see a way in which they can combine to watch over that baby. I think there will be endless rows, endless trouble.
She's a Barlow through and through.
Two great street families, and they are united in a very, very awkward, uneasy way through the birth of this baby. And that has to be a source of great family drama for the future.
Do you know what? I think she'd like a cuddle off her granddad.
It could go on forever. Well, it will go on forever, won't it? Another 43 years of Coronation Street.
There's one thing, though, we can all be sure of. Trouble will never be far away for our favourite Corrie families.
Do I think it's the end of the shocks for Ken and Deirdre? Well, I hope not.
I wish they'd win lottery or something, Jack and Vera. They should come into some money. I'm sick of that yellow mark.
I mean, one would like to say a wonderful, nice, calm, easy life. But that doesn't make for a very exciting television or even very exciting acting.
When you've been in it, you feel as though, you know, it's a piece of history that you are taking part in.
Oh, it's fantastic. Who could wish for more? Long may it continue.
Up the family, I say.